Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to the southern wing of the Stink Bug Works. I just got done watching Big B's video, and I must admit, today's video was one of the more entertaining, informative, and thought-creating videos from Big B. Big B is experiencing some of the issues of building little tiny boats, having to custom build all your drive hardware, having to custom build all your motor mounts, having to custom build all the servo and the linkage, and having to custom build this because there is no precedent. Nobody else has done it. Big B's the first guy to do this to that haul. And so he's kind of out there suffering the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, if you would. But a couple of things. He talked about his stingers where he had a little piece around it that would do the adjustment. And he was thinking that would cause some turbulence. Now, it may or it may not. But if I were building a set of stingers out of brass tubes, here's the way I would do that little joint. Now, all these tubes telescope. So you got to figure out what's your starting diameter. Your starting diameter is your drive shaft, and then you upsize from there, and you finally figure out what your outer diameter is. I would take that outer diameter and go one more tube larger. And then in this larger tube, do I have anything that's a tube? In this larger tube, I would cut a slot through one side and then solder in a brass tab with a hole in it. And then you could come in later with a drill or a mill or a file and file off the inside of that tab so you'd have a good solder joint across there, and then put that on the smaller tube. Or another way to approach that is cut the slot, put the smaller tube inside the larger tube, and solder everything together all at one blip. So you have a good solid mount for a brass tab above the water line that you could put your adjusting on. Because he may have a point. There may be something amiss, because you've got this water flow going back to the props, and it's breaking off the transom here, the end of the sponson, nice and clean, and it's running along that nice smooth shaft, so the water should be pretty laminar as it's approaching the propeller. But then it has this turbulator halfway down this stinger, and maybe that's a point. Now, doing it the way I suggested is going to be a pain in the ass to build, but it'll be bitchin' when you're done. So if all else fails and you think that this thing is still the problem, solder a tab to it. or they also make brass channel, which is, a piece of metal shaped like a U, and then it's long. So instead of a tube, it's a square U shape. You might be able to get a channel that would go over the upper half of your stinger and leave the bottom half smooth and round, and then attach something to that brass channel. So there's a couple of ideas there. I think your props are way too big. But You always run props that are too big, so that's nothing new. If I had that boat, I would look at 32 to 36 millimeters. You're running 38s, and that's kind of on the big side. Smaller props will let the motors spool up. They'll be more efficient and not necessarily faster, although they could be. It would be interesting to see maybe a smaller diameter and higher pitch. Maybe if you went to a 32-18. Ooh, I've got a pair of counter-rotating 32-18s on my micro drifter. Those are the CNC props. You can get them in left and right. They're, are they 4 millimeter? They might be 4 millimeter, but you can shim those down. Look into those props. They're a 32-18 3-blade CNC. They may work. I sent you some props for that, I think. In fact, that might be what's on there. Or I sent you some props for something just because I don't recall. Anyway, enough of Big B. Let's talk about Dr. Jet. Check it out, boys and girls. Check it out. Now, there's no way Oliver could have molded this boat with these sponson inner rails tilted in like this, because as you try to pull it out of the mold, it would be this thing grabbing hold, and it's just not coming out. So I can't blame Oliver for not doing this, but I'm of the opinion that this is really going to help in cornering. So we shall see. Today's project, I've got this pretty darn close. There's a couple of little, there's a little dent right there. And they're almost small enough I could fill them with paint. But I'll put a dab of epoxy on there, because I'm going to be mixing up epoxy today. What for? For the cooling tube. Now, there's just a couple of things I have to resolve before this thing's ready. I've got to resolve the cooling and the antenna. So I got a Gazinta and a Gazata. And so the Gazinta, I showed you that the other day. It's going to have a pickup here, and it's going to go along there. And I'm going to poke a hole in this little flood chamber wall, right about there. And it's going to come out, go around and do its stuff. And I'm half tempted to just vent it out into the flood chamber and let it, come out the flood chamber. That way, it keeps this area neat and clean, and I don't need hoses and tubes running all around in here getting in my way. It's already tight enough. So I think that will be my plan, is the Gazinta come in here, and then I'll just poke a hole through the wall. And what I might do is I might make a carbon fiber Gazinta Gazata plate, where the Gazinta will go into it and the Gazata will go out of it. And then I can make a fairly large hole in here to get that thing, get the Gazinta in there. And then just take a blob of epoxy and Cabasil and squish that plate up against the wall, kind of wipe it down, and it'll look like it was supposed to be that way. So that's what I'm thinking, because part of my problem was if I just drill a hole small enough for the pipe, I was going to put some fabric doublers on it, but how would he get in, because the pipe has all these bends? And I was thinking of, taking up distance from here to here. I could always put a bend in the pipe to shorten up the distance if I needed. But I like the idea of just cutting a big hole and then putting a carbon fiber plate right up against there, and I will have already glued the Gazzetta pipe into it, and I'll just have a hole for the Gazzetta pipe, and I can put the Gazzetta pipe here, slip it over the Gazzetta, and there you go. Now, the antenna. I think I got enough room back here behind the servo. I might be able to squeeze a receiver. If not, I can put the receiver right on top of the batteries back in this area. Remember, the batteries are going to go, they've been put away. The batteries are going to go right under these little tubes. So anyway, I just have a little antenna sticking up out of here. This, because of the carbon, it's not complete carbon fiber, it's carbon fiber Kevlar, but this forms a Faraday cage, a perfect Faraday cage. And a Faraday cage will keep all the RF inside and all the RF outside, and never the twain shall meet. So that's bad for radio control. You want the twain to meet. Don't know what else to tell you. Gotta find a good next project. The ML Boatworks Tide has been moved up into the closet. I have absolutely no desire whatsoever to build that kit. I'm done with it. So it's already in the closet. So I'm looking for a new project. And it's got to be small. It's got to be fast, cheap, and out of control. See, Big B's learning the benefits of cheap and the frustrations of cheap. But I still like fast, cheap, and out of control. Big B likes ballistic, cheap, and out of control. But so, working on the next project. As these things go through the paint shop, we'll find something. It's got to be about yay big. It's got to fit here in the Stink Bug Works. You know, I don't want to have to move equipment around in the hangar here to make room for a 51-inch boat. 51 inches. Let's see. That's 4 feet and change. So one. It wouldn't fit here. So, sorry. The Stink Bug Works isn't big enough to handle it. The Stink Bug Works is, we build fighters, not bombers. There you go, boys and girls. I've done enough ratchet jaw. I heard a good line. They were talking about people swearing. And somebody says, well, I speak truck driver with a sailor accent. Until next time, boys and girls, jet out.